So people ask, how do we get this current set of books in the Bible? Or why did some not make it in? And then on top of that, you have the Catholic Bible, which includes the Apocrypha, some books that aren't in the Protestant Bible. And you go, how did this happen? How do some books get rejected? Why do some books get rejected? So I want to kind of streamline everything and talk about three categories, three reasons why books got rejected from being a part of our current Bible. The first is the most obvious. It's if a book had theological errors. Now you see this around the New Testament period of time particularly. You saw a lot of Gnostic writings, Gnostic gospels show up, like the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of Truth. These are Gnostic teachings put in the mouth of Jesus to try to say that Gnosticism is kind of this Christianized version of Gnosticism anyway, is part of Christianity. Gnosticism basically taught that the body is bad and your soul or spirit is trapped within that body, and you have to find the divine light within that secret knowledge of who you really are and what you're really about to kind of overcome the material world and achieve what you need to achieve as far as being the person you're supposed to be. And only when you find that secret knowledge about who you are, the God inside, the divine, whatever, can you get there. Well, obviously, Christianity and Gnosticism don't go together, and these books were quickly rejected outright. And so they weren't included, even though they were written maybe somewhere within 100 to 200 years after Jesus, depending on how you want to date those writings. But they were quickly rejected. That's an easy reject. The second, similarly, some writings came from legends and fantasies. They weren't historical writings, and they were mostly these stories that were kind of fantastical or fantasy. You have something in the Old Testament period like Tobit, which is kind of a romantic fantasy, or Judith, which is not historical and actually contains some errors of chronology. And so you have in the New Testament period, once again, the Gospel of Thomas, which is kind of this fantastical telling of the story of Jesus, when it does tell some stories. Like it has Jesus making these clay pigeons on the Sabbath, and then people get upset that he's made these clay pigeons. And so Joseph goes to investigate what Jesus has done. And when Joseph shows up, Jesus just claps his hand and these clay pigeons turn into real pigeons and they fly away. So you have stuff like that quickly, once again, was rejected as part of the canon of Scripture. The third is more complicated. This is the writings that were rejected, but were still thought of as profitable to read. Books like the Wisdom of Solomon, which is a lot like the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes we have today, except with maybe a little bit more Greek thinking thrown in. Or you have Ecclesiasticus, which again is in that wisdom tradition, but maybe with a little bit more of a Sadducee bent to it. And these were read both in the time of their writing. They were widely read among Jewish and Christian believers. They were highly valued, but in the end, they just didn't make the cut. But that leads us to another question. Why? I mean, can we really trust the Bible if it was selected by groups of people and it was just compiled by people? Don't the people have the ultimate authority then instead of the Scripture? And the answer to that is that theologians say that these groups that helped compile our current Bible, it's not that they had the authority and then they gave it to these books. It's that the books already had the authority, and these groups just recognized that authority. And that's how we got the books that we did, and how we didn't get other books that we didn't get. Because ultimately, what was recognized was that God was at work in this process to bring about these particular books and to eliminate other books so that we would end up with the revelation that we have from God. None of these other books that were left out that were really profitable necessarily add anything to the scripture theologically. They don't introduce new doctrine, new understanding, but they can be profitable to help enlighten us, just like books that we read today help enlighten the scriptures and that kind of thing. But ultimately, the authority is in the Word, not in those who helped bring about the Old Testament and the New Testament that we have today.